Hello and welcome to another episode of Page Burners. We're working our way through the Malazan books in publication order by both authors Stephen Erickson and Ian Esslemont. Today's discussion is going to be the final discussion for Knight of Knives. It's I think the third one of three that we did for this book. Today's discussion will be covering chapters 4 and 5 and the epilogue. We'll be back next week with Bone Hunters, the next book in publication order, and the sixth book in the Malazan Book of the Fallen by Stephen Erickson. We'll be reading up to the end of chapter 2 for next week's discussion. If you'd like to talk to us about these books, please check out the Patreon forum if you're reading along with us. We do a lot of discussion there. That's everything. With me, of course, we have the usual group of friends. They'll talk about what they are most interested in discussing. What is mine? I think maybe the epilogue with Shadow Throne. And no. The Stormriders. What happened with the Stormriders? And that's still in the epilogue with the final scene, I think, where the Stormriders ask them, "Why are you killing us?" That's all. Mirka?
Hi everyone, this is Mirka. I wanted to talk about how quite a few things in this book happened off screen or off page, and is that a good thing or a bad thing? I'm curious to know your guys' opinions on that. Steve, do you want to go next?
Yeah, I'm Steve from Page Chewing, and I'm most interested in talking about Kiska's conclusion, I guess, as her character, and whether or not it was a fitting end for her in this book. Because I have some thoughts on that, but I'll kick it on over to Carl.
I'm Carl. This is my second time reading Knight of Knives, and what do I want to talk about? Probably I was going to say the Stormriders as well, and the ending, the epilogue. It's kind of wild, and definitely makes me curious about where Esslemont goes with this in the rest of the novels of the Malazan Empire. I have to imagine that there's some payoff to that. But I also just want to talk about how much I really appreciate this book. And I'll hand it off to Dan.
Yeah, it's me. I'm Dan. And what I want to talk about? Well, I wanted to talk about Kiska mostly because it seemed from the previous 2 times ago discussion that she's not a well-liked character, but I quite liked her actually. She's my favorite character of the book, so I was kind of wanted to ask why and how it compares to my opinion. I'll pass it to, I don't know who's missing, so whoever's missing can go next.
I'm Shannon, and I also, I want to talk about Kiska too, and also just kind of generally, did you get out of this book what you wanted? Because there's a lot that goes off panel. It's kind of building up what Mirka said, really. And were you, when you reached the end of this book, were you really satisfied?
Yes. I don't know what everyone else will say, but I really love the book and I really love the ending. I love how everything comes together. And that, obviously a lot happens off screen. I think if you go into this thinking that you're just going to see very specifically Kellenved and Cotillion's ascension, you're going to be disappointed. But I think that within the context of like how this book opens, what the promises this book actually makes on the page, it fulfills those promises. And I enjoy the kind of following sort of tertiary characters in world-changing events. There's just something about that to me is very interesting, although I could certainly imagine why that might be very frustrating for other readers, and particularly if you wanted to see the path to ascendancy, as it were.
So not to derail the conversation so soon, but Carl, do you think you'd feel differently about this book if you read it the way us first-time readers are reading it, or do you feel like reading the whole series gives you a different kind of perspective on this book?
Well, I think I did read it in the middle of the series. I don't think I waited until the end of the Book of the Fallen. I don't remember exactly. I mean, maybe I did. My memory is hazy. But I mean, I went into it thinking that it was about Cotillion and Shadow Throne becoming the gods. But I think because they were very clearly not on page from early on, I understood what the book was really going to be, and adapted accordingly. I think I also just really enjoyed. Well, I mean, I guess a big part of it fulfilled what I wanted to do, which was tell me more of what happened that night and how things played out. And I felt like I learned a lot about everything that happened around those events, even if I didn't see very directly Surly and Kellenved's confrontation and exactly what went on with, our duo of intrepid ascendants on their path to ascendancy. And I do suspect that ultimately we will get that story in what I imagine will be the last book Esslemont writes in the Malazan universe.
Well, he would
Yeah,
have to go back to this very book, right? Like he would have to maybe throw in an epilogue that happens in the throne room, which would be very cool, honestly. But I have to say I kind of like that we didn't see that confrontation. We just kind of got that mysterious point of view where you don't see anything, you just hear things, like how Kellenved was described to approach with his walking stick tapping. That was awesome. And I think Tayschrenn was, I don't know how you guys understood the fact that he was bleeding or whatever. I think it was because he was trying to kind of figure out what was happening and like go through all those defenses, or just kind of peek into that room that was so protected by, I guess, Kellenved's magic. But yeah, I really like that that we didn't actually see the fight. We just saw the aftermath of the fight, and therefore there was a lot of things left for imagination. I guess we got some information about like maybe Otataral was involved, and Dancer clearly killed a bunch of people alone against, I don't know how many claws in that room, which just again proves how badass he is. But yeah, this one specifically, this scene, I didn't mind that it was missing, but we'll get to another one that I thought was definitely missing.
Yeah, I think the first time I read it, yeah, I came in thinking this was the story of Kellenved and Dancer ascending, and I was really disappointed when I got to the end. And I think that's a common complaint. People complain about this, but usually it's just they feel like it's not climactic enough. The second time through, though, with my expectations, like I knew what was coming. I was in like Carl said. I mean, kind of like the book never says it's gonna show you that. Like just meet the book where it's at, and I enjoyed it a lot more. So yeah, I was very satisfied with it.
Well, okay, Steve and Dan, I'm curious, more detailed reactions from you. I mean, I'm definitely getting the sense that you were maybe underwhelmed, but I'm curious what specifically didn't appeal to you as much.
Do you want to go, Steve?
Yeah, I think it appealed to me. It was a nice break from the more dense main series. I really like the horror elements that Esslemont has in this one. The way that he describes the bodies and the kind of the parts that feel scarier than I think I was expecting. I can kind of see why somebody reading the main series would feel like it's a detour if they want to get on with the main Malazan books. I can see how some people would be a little bit put off by it, but I thought it was fine. I was surprised that I haven't looked into the reaction, but it sounds like it's kind of a negative reaction. But I thought it was fine. I mean, it was a nice read. It was very fast paced. I liked that it was in the time frame of a night and it wasn't really drawn out. So it gave you this more of a claustrophobic kind of limited perspective on the book because you knew that the night would end, and I think that added to the tension of what's going to happen because you know that there was an end point. It wasn't over the course of months or years or anything. So I really liked the pace and the kind of the expectation was this is over the course of a night. I think it kind of added to the tension and suspense of what's going to happen. So I thought it was fine.
Okay, that's pretty much what I thought too. I was just, how do I say, like slightly let down by the fact that, I don't know, like I thought that it was going to be sort of like a standalone book, but it doesn't really, I don't think it stands alone. So I went into the expectation, okay, it's going to be a night and it's going to conclude the story and I'm going to get some, satisfied conclusion, but it doesn't really. It just hints at a bunch of other things. And yeah, it's interesting because it gives you more context on what happened, but it also doesn't fully explain it. So like we have in the main Malazan series, we have an allusion to this and we have some information. And here we have a bit more, and then we need a bit more. It's like, it's not actually resolving anything. I don't know. But maybe that's just my wrong expectation. I should expect it to be more like part of a series, I guess. I was hoping it would be something like, I don't know if anyone read the like the standalone books from the First Law trilogy. There's like 3 or 4. I was hoping it would be something like that, like books that you can read even without reading the main series. It's a concluded story. It gives you more information on the main story, but it's also something on its own. And again, that's not what this is. So it might be my issue with what I expected it to be. But I don't know. I just hoped it would be something like that, I guess.
I think it might work as a standalone if you read this first, because there is an arc. I think it actually is specifically the context that you have several other books. That is what changes this from feeling like it's no longer a standalone and there's so much unresolved. Like, I think the biggest thing that remains like within the pages of this book as a story unresolved is the Stormriders, and that we get this like kind of stinger of an ending. Like that very much obviously doesn't, pay off in any way. It is this constant sort of looming threat, and it ups the stakes. And I do think it adds something to the book, but it isn't like that. To me is the least contained aspect of this. In my mind, everything from like the structure to, the character Temper and Kiska being our like, our POVs, kind of, they both have neat little arcs. They're not like overly, dramatic per se. Like they don't like radically change as characters, but I do think that they have arcs. And then, the story of the night, I think, does kind of get wrapped up in a bow of sorts, because it really is. It's all like the way it opens up is like the Stormriders are coming, and someone is trying to take the throne of the Shadow Worn, and that pays off. The book literally ends with the Stormriders are defeated, and we have new Lords of Shadow. And so I think it is specifically within the context of the book The Fallen and the rest of the Malazan world that it suddenly takes this bigger meaning. And there's so much, because like I agree with you, Dan, that I think it does this weird thing where it simultaneously tells us so much about what happened that night and actually opens up like so many new avenues and so many new questions. Because suddenly the events of the night are so much more complex than we realized. Everything is just like way more labyrinthine. And there's way more factions and just way more going on. And we don't get as many answers there as maybe we'd expect. Now, I enjoyed that it kind of adds this sense of like, it really makes the world feel complex and real to me. And also it leaves those events as like the mythic backbone of the main books. And by the main books, I even mean like Esslemont's original series, just because it like, you know, that is sort of the event that changed everything. And now it's, you know, I think you lose something if you make it all kind of very apparent, very clear, very clean what happens on the page. It's almost to me like the forging of the One Ring or something, where it's like if you suddenly lay out like every event around it, like it loses some of the grandeur.
Yeah, it just seemed to me for like this story, like that big story that I care more about reading as opposed to this story of Temper and Kiska, which is like it's fine. It's just not that interesting to me. Like I don't know what makes it that special. Like what makes the story of these two characters interesting? It's like the story of the knight that's interesting. It's like the story, at least to me, it's like Shadowthrone and Cotillia and Tayschrenn and all that stuff that's going on. Not the other stuff. And we don't get enough of that part because, again, like you said, a lot of it is not shown. It's just implied, or we get a little bit of it. But
well, I understand Temper because that's how we get some explanation about Dassam.
Yes.
But I agree that Kiska's storyline is just there, very much.
But even Dasim, I'd rather just see the story of him, just a separate story with Dasim and all this sort of thing, instead of, I don't know, at that time.
Well, it's interesting too because he only matters within the context of this specific book to Temper, as like Temper's backstory and his emotional element and his emotional arc, because he doesn't appear. He's not really on page. Like he doesn't matter to the story. The only additional meaning he has is because we know he is such this important historic figure in the rest of the series, and he's still alive, we find out, which is a big reveal. It's kind of funny getting that here as opposed to like, you know, we haven't gotten that in Book of the Fallen yet. As far as we knew, he was, or had we gotten that? Did we know he's still alive? We didn't, right?
Don't think so.
We did.
Did
we?
We
well, he was mentioned.
We've met Traveler,
but he wasn't named. We didn't know. We didn't know that was him. Yeah.
Oh yeah, we did. You're right. Yeah. I remember now.
So, spoiler alert: we met him in the main books, but we didn't know we met him.
I guess. But yeah, like the fact that Dasim is alive, it's like it does nothing for this book. For example, it doesn't serve a function in the story of this book. Kind of. It's just like a teaser. Well, I want to know about it. But
I think that's how Esslemont kind of approaches his books. I think he very much feels like he needs to provide backstory to the characters of the Malazan Book of the Fallen, which is great, but also sometimes it's a little clunky. Maybe this would be one of the situations where it is just like, okay, good to know, but why here? Why in this book if he doesn't show up at all or like doesn't have any direct connection to the plot?
Yeah, I think to that point, it was nice seeing a different perspective of events and seeing more, you know, getting more detail on other events that we've seen. But there were times when I wondered, and I think this is a habit that us fantasy readers have, is when we, especially when we're reading a book like Malazan, that we see names we don't recognize and we automatically think, well, maybe this is just like a red shirt. Like, should I really become invested in this character? Like, what's, you know, the names that we recognize, I think we're more invested in because we've been following them for thousands of pages. But the other names that we know will come and go in this book is kind of like, well, is this really significant to the main story? I think that's probably just a habit that we've developed over time and not necessarily a bad choice. Just, I think we just get into the habit of seeing names that we recognize and being more invested in them than characters that we know we may never see again in this series.
Well, I've always thought one of the themes of Malazan is just, you know, like how intertwined people's stories are. That's why, you know, every book's got a whole new cast of characters practically. And people's lives are just intertwined and stories never really end. They just, you know, they jump all over the place. And in that, I feel like Esslemont is very much in the same place as Erickson with this book. Like, we see his characters, and in fact, we see, I mean, Temper is more or less kind of at the end. Like, he's had his adventures. He was this mighty, you know, fighter, and now he's at the end. And Kiska, on the other hand, I think we're given very much the feeling she's just at the very beginning of her adventures. So Like I think that's the point of it. It's just we're dipping in just like the Books of the Fallen. We're dipping in. We're seeing their lives for a night, and that's it.
To elaborate on that, I think Erikson and Esslemont both are much more concerned with the laymen of civilization than most fantasy authors are. Like typically when you have some random peasant, they're the chosen one, you know, they have some great destiny. And Erikson and Esslemont, I think, very specifically try to highlight the everyday person who, I mean, to be fair, Temper and Kiska are extraordinary. It's not like they're completely ordinary, but they are, within the context of the series as a whole, relatively ordinary, right? Like Temper is not, he's not Dasimultor, right? He's not Surly or Shadow Throne. He's not even a bridge burner. Kiska may or may not have a big future ahead of her, but currently she's just kind of a punk kid. And she's not particularly powerful. She really is just sort of dangerously reckless and, you know, maybe has some survival capabilities. And so I find that charming that Esslemont in this book, the point of view is from characters who don't seem to matter and yet matter very much. There's a lot that would have gone very differently. Like Temper, for example, right? If he hadn't held, you know, the Jagged lady, who knows what would have happened. If Kiska hadn't gone and done everything she did, I mean, who knows who all dies there, right? I mean, she kind of was Tayschrenn's agent, inadvertently at first, and then very intentionally later on. So I think that there is, I think it's an intentional choice, I guess, is what I'm getting at. It may not work for people, you know, and I'm not even trying to say like I think that like this is a perfectly executed book and everything about it just like works, and you know the people who don't get it are just like stupid or anything like that. Like I think it's just like it has like obvious, you know, it has flaws, but I do think that some of the issue of it is just a matter of like perspective going into it, where the perception of what, you know, maybe you think the story should be or is going to be is not what it is. It is kind of just like a side story set in one of the most crucial moments in the history of the world.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think expectations have a lot to do with that too.
Well, before we, I guess I get into the chapters, Steve, you also had like kind of a like Kiska, like, you know, you want to talk about that?
Yeah, after the kind of the darker tone of the book, the Kiska's the end of in the epilogue, I felt like it would. I was hoping that she would find her own way and not tail along with someone else or kind of be the understudy. I was kind of hoping her to blaze her own trail and not tag along with someone else. So I was a little bit disappointed with that. After the kind of the tone and the pace and everything, I kind of hoped that she would go and do her own thing and find her own way and go on adventures and just explore and do other things. I guess I just had a different.
Yeah.
I was hoping a different end for that character.
Well, well, when you said that in the forum, I knew I was going to disagree with you. And also, I guess I'm going to disagree with Carl. Because, see, I thought that Esslemont basically gave her the kind of the chosen one farm girl thing, where it's like we see that, you know, what would normally be just the first couple chapters of a fantasy book, where we meet the person who wants to go see the world, and then bad things happen, and then they hook up with some, you know, mage that's old and can be a mentor figure, and then, you know, that's where this book ends, where usually we follow them as they go on their adventure. So, which I kind of liked. I was like, yeah, it's a trope, but whatever.
I found it satisfying in the weird roundabout way he did the trope. But I also, I mean, I can sympathize with what you're saying, Steve, that I think with like the setup of her character and how she is sort of rejected multiple times by like institutional figures, you kind of want her to maybe sort of reject the institutions altogether and find her own path, which you could argue she kind of does. But I mean, she's still working with someone who's like one of the head figures behind the scenes, who I will say comes across way more sympathetic in this book than in any of
I
the
did
books.
want to bring that up.
Tayschrenn is
because
like pretty awesome in this book. Like he seems like a really nice guy, honestly. And then
they made it more sympathetic. The Tay, I was like, it sounded like a social media influencer. Is what
you should humanize him with the pet name.
Yeah. I will say I did hate that scene though with the Tay and how she just immediately figured out who he was. I'm like, really? Because his name was Arlen, and I didn't figure out that he was whatever his name was from Memory Device, Arlen Tun or something.
It was Arthen and Arthentos, right?
Oh, that was it. Yeah. So it's like it's almost the same name as he had in Memories of Ice. I'm like, I didn't pick up on that. I'm like, shut up, Kiska, you're not smarter than me.
That was definitely one of the things I did want to bring up was Tayschrenn. It just like it's a completely different person. It to me at least. Maybe it just because before he was kind of put like an antagonist, but I don't know. He just felt like I couldn't figure. Even when they said it was Tayschrenn, I was like, wait, is it the same actual person? Because his personality seemed very different.
How much have we actually seen Tayschrenn be Tayschrenn though? In the Book of the Fallen, like he's like very briefly in Gardens of the Moon, but mostly he's just talked about and is like considered a war criminal and the guy who betrayed the bridge burners, which we find out is not actually true. And then he's in Memories of Ice, but he's in disguise the entire time, pretending to be the standard bearer.
He doesn't say anything.
Yeah, so I don't think we really get
in
his
the first book. There is some there are some conversations in him like kind of like fighting a bit with some of the like the Fist and other people. Like he seemed a lot more
maybe they just don't get along.
contentious and argumentative. I don't know.
He comes across like more of a bureaucrat, I will agree, in Gardens of the Moon. But that may also just be the context, because he's like working within the bureaucracy then, and now he's like, I don't know, in the middle of a shitstorm.
I guess it just seemed a lot more annoying and more. I don't know. Here he's very friendly. He's very, I would say, even charming. He's like, seems like I would get along with him, which is very different image that I had from him before, I guess.
Maybe he's just way different at work, and this was, when he wasn't at work, he was just doing his own thing.
Shannon, you put it way more eloquently than I did. That's exactly, yes.
When he goes to work, he feels like he's got to be kind of an asshole, and, I got to keep these people in line. And here he is, and he's like, you know what, this little kid, I'm not going to be an asshole to her, like, whatever.
Maybe. I don't know. Like, Cotillion and Shadowthrone instead, though, I don't both match what I'd seen before, at least in my mind.
It's funny you say that, because a common criticism is that Esslemont and Eriksson write the characters very differently.
Yeah, I was thinking that right now. Yeah.
That's what I thought about Tayschrenn, not about the other characters.
For what it's worth, I actually agree with you about Shadowthrone and Cotillion. And I think they feel relatively consistent. Like they're feel like minor voice discrepancies in the way that two authors are going to write characters slightly differently. But I feel like their personalities generally are the same, considering that they actively change over the course of books. Like the Shadowthrone and Cotillion we're seeing as of book 4 of Book of the Fallen is those are wildly different people than the ones we see here, which are wildly different people than like Path to Ascendancy, which takes place starts decades ago.
Yeah. Surly too also it felt fine to me. We didn't see much of her in the main series, but it fit within my image, I guess.
What do you think, Varsha? You haven't said much.
Oh, I'm listening. I don't strictly have opinions, and these are things I haven't even thought about, so I'm mostly just listening. But I did want to ask about Surly. So it seemed to me, I could be wrong about this, from what she told, was it Tayschrenn, that she took up the name Lasine now, like after what happened tonight. But when we meet her in Gardens of the Moon, she's calling herself Lasine. So did she start doing that before tonight, or am I wrong that this happened after the events of Gardens of the Moon? Like what?
I think this happened
This
before,
definitely
Before? Okay.
right?
Okay, I thought this was
This?
after, so this is before.
no, this is definitely after because they reference the mouse quarter riots that were happening in the prologue
Right.
memory place. So no, it's got to be after. Yeah, I don't. Maybe that's just a continuity error. I don't know, or maybe she didn't officially call herself Lasine yet. Maybe it was just like because I feel like Whiskey Jack and Fiddler said something about that, where it's like, oh, she's calling herself this, but it's really presumptuous because we still have an emperor. Because like the name means like, I don't know, emperor killer or something stupid.
Yeah, Kingmaker or something, I think. Or
Kingmaker, So it's like, I think I remember them saying like, this is presumptuous because we still have an emperor. So,
but also,
okay,
aren't Shadow Throne and Kellenved already? Aren't they ascended in the Gardens of the Moon? Like when they send those hounds on those soldiers at the beginning, like that's already.
We're just talking about the prologue.
Yeah,
just the prologue.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, the prologue is when Perrin's still like a kid, and then we jump to Sorry getting enlisted.
Okay, so that's after this.
That's
book,
later.
Then. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, the majority of Gardens of the Moon definitely takes place after this book, like years after this book. But the prologue takes
9 or
place
10 years
before. It is confusing. Now that you bring that up, Varsha, with the way it's presented, it does kind of feel like that's a minor continuity error. Because it does very much, the prologue of Gardens of the Moon makes it seem like she is actively like, hey, I'm not Surly, I'm Lasine now. Everyone's calling me Lasine now. And so you would think like, well, maybe your average everyday person wouldn't know that. Tayschrenn should know that. Like that shouldn't be a conversation they need to have.
Yeah, if Whiskey Jack does Tayschrenn,
exactly,
he's higher than him in the everything.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Varsha, what are your thoughts? This was your first time, right?
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on Kiska and Temper?
Kiska and Temper. I think they were both mildly interesting characters for me. I really enjoyed following them through the night. Temper for me was definitely the more interesting, but mostly because of the backstory he brought with him about Dasim Altor, which I was thinking about what you guys said about whether this could be a standalone or not, and how much someone who, say, hasn't read the Malazan Book of the Fallen, I don't even think a first-time reader of the Malazan Book of the Fallen would care so much about Dasim Altor, because we haven't really interacted with him that we know of so far in the series. So, so I'm not entirely sure how interesting that would be for someone who reads it for the first time, because right now, at the end of the series, I care deeply about Dasim Altor and like really wanting to know his history, much like I do with Dancer and Kellenved. So because of that, I think Temper's backstory was really very interesting for me. So I'm curious about how the Dasim stuff read to both of you, Steve and Dan. But yeah, I really liked all the action scenes. Kiska, it's not that I disliked her, it's just I couldn't really get behind her need for adventure. Especially the way it happened, right? Like okay, so I might be being a little unfair. I think at the halfway mark, she actually had something to do, which was deliver a message to this Arthur person. So up to that, so first she was just like, okay, I need adventure, and maybe her motivation is there are a claw in town and I want to be noticed and be part of that group. but later on, it's just take me with you for the sake of adventure. So yeah, I think I don't fully understand that mindset, maybe because I've never had it. I don't know. So for that reason, she wasn't an interesting character for me to follow. Not to say that I disliked her, but it just it she didn't really grow on me through the course of the book. She just stayed the same throughout.
Mhm.
And I think arguably that can be said about Temper too. Once again, not to say that
Mhm.
they weren't interesting, but like they started at a certain level and they stayed there. My favorite characters are those that I grow to love as I read more about them, which, like Dancer, Kellenved, etc. definitely come there. Fiddler, who we will meet again in Bone Hunters, yay. So yeah, I think they're starkly mid to answer to give you a short answer to your question.
While I really like those two characters, particularly on a reread, I do think that, at least just in my opinion, that one of the weakest points of this book is that their motivations and kind of what's driving them is too poorly defined. And like you could like kind of lay out what it is, but like it's hard to really understand psychologically why they are that way. And I'm not convinced the book is made better by, like, these are not mysterious characters. These characters are not meant to be mysterious. We're not meant to be like what's going on in their heads. Like they're I think it's a failure in the story that they don't feel like we are emotionally behind them and we understand
Mhm.
the decisions they're making. Like I don't understand Temper's deal with Corin and how all of that ended. Like that was almost supposed to be a cathartic thing. I'm like, I don't know what's going on here. Like this is like, are we supposed to believe that they have some sort of like romantic chemistry? Suddenly she's not weirdly murderous with him. I like what it was just like weird. And I'm with you that it kind of feels like again, like on paper, I can write down kind of what they were doing and why they were doing that, but like I couldn't really tell you like deep down why they were doing it, you know. And so it made things feel kind of arbitrary in terms of how, like the decisions they were making in like the middle half of the book, really. Like I think the opening and the ending is the strongest in terms of like my understanding them as characters and like the decisions they're making and the things they do. Like I love the ending, like the climax, because I find Temper's like final stand really cathartic. I think it's great, and what it's about for him as this like kind of worn out warrior finding kind of purpose in a moment and realizing like this is who I am. Like I'm the man who holds down the line and I stand up and that's just who I fucking am. Like I think that's great. And his scene with the jacket I think is awesome. And how all of that plays out, like I love that. I love Kiska, running off and getting her like farm boy, start to the adventure sort of thing. Like I think that's really charming. But there's just like there's a big middle part of the book where it's like we just need to like better understand their psychology and what it is that's like making them tick in these moments, why they're making the decisions they're making, I think.
I think part of why they're so mid is for a good chunk of the book, they're just kind of like they're our viewpoint to see stuff that's happening. And there's no real reason, like especially Kiska. Like she's just kind of drug along with people and goes here, goes there, just so she can witness a couple things so that we can get the story.
Yeah. If we compare the Guardians of the Moon, I guess Crocus's introduction to the main narrative makes more sense to me, and I compare them because they're quite similar characters.
I
and
agree.
the way he gets involved in it with, I guess, his friends, and he was going somewhere to steal things, and then he finds like it's a lot more well integrated with the other big stuff that happens, as opposed to here where it's just like her going around and snooping, I guess. That's the main thing.
Something I asked myself about Kiska at the end of the book was, do I believe that Tayschrenn would take her with him or pick her to be part of his crew? Like, what did she do to deserve that? And I think, there was this one passage there where where Esslemont tried to justify all this with hinting at her talent with the Warrens. But I guess would Tayschrenn know that? I guess maybe, yes, as a mage he would maybe sense that. I think Dancer also mentions that he recognized her talent or whatever. But still, yeah, I don't know. I guess one thing that I realized also for myself is that Tayschrenn didn't have all that inner monologue of hers, which we got, and which is the main reason why I found her annoying. So I think, in that sense, I understand that he would take her because he didn't have all that, all those, weird adolescent things she would say, or those scenarios in her head.
I
Did you
think it is
think
like
she was deserving of the inclusion in the Tayschrenn's crew?
her sheer pluck, I think, would win it with someone like Tayschrenn. Like just like the giant cojones she has throughout the whole night, and then to ask him, like I think, I mean, it's kind of like a fantasy trope. So a part of you is like, or a part of me is like, yeah, like of course, but I do kind of like, I bought it. For me, it was cathartic, especially because he seemed to like her. Like he seemed to genuinely, and maybe part of it is too because like I just have it in my head that he sort of rose up with this empire. What is this sound? What are we hearing in the background?
I'm sorry. It looks like something's going on upstairs.
That'll happen.
There's just a possession going on upstairs.
Yeah. I wish you could hear it the way we hear it, Dan. Like it's kind of crazy the way it comes through the speakers.
It was like Harkonnen sounds.
It
right?
was.
Yes.
It's just crazy.
Harkonnens are coming. Oh no.
Yeah. Yeah. So Dan's gonna like go off screen and come back, and he's just like bleach white, shaved, just truly horrifying.
And hovering,
wearing all black.
Well, I'm going to be less generous to Tayschrenn, and I'm going to say I believe he would take her. Maybe it was because she's young and impressionable, and he can mold her as he wants, and he can turn her into whatever he wants to turn her into. And also, I think it seems like she uses the same Warren he does, Thyre. So maybe that also is part of it. Is he's. So I don't know. I believe he would take her, for good reasons or bad reasons.
So on the subject of why Kiska is maybe as special as she seems to believe she is, what do you guys think about all the time she was taken into the Shadow Warren? The first time, okay, she happened to be where Oleg died. I don't remember the second time. Why did she end up there a second time when she met?
The Hound was chasing her, wasn't he?
Oh, the Hound was chasing her, right?
And she was. Shoot, what was it?
The fog.
Is that when
right?
she went to Oleg's
stepped
tower?
into the shadow fog.
Oh, she went into the fog and then she went to Oleg's tower. That's
I see.
Yeah.
And the third time was accidentally while making her way through Tyr.
Like I said, I feel like she's just being drugged around to show us stuff.
Well, I think it's all accidental, but like they set that up. Like the barrier between Warren's realities is very thin during the Shadow Moon. So it wasn't just happening to her, it happened to everyone.
Well, and no, never mind. I'm thinking of Minas. Minas is connected to light. That's not necessarily shadow.
I mean, it goes so far as Temper stumbles into Omtos Falak at the very end. Literally just because he's facing off with the Jagged.
Yeah.
But the barriers between reality is thin and the Shadow Moon is high.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
Yeah, somewhat makes sense.
I mean, I love that stuff. That's like out of fairy tales. It's like when, a certain night of the year, you stumble in the wrong place and you end up in fairyland.
Yeah, I really like the ending, that last chapter in which it was like dawn comes and it's kind of like nobody really noticed, kind of like a bad dream. I really liked that sort of thing because it kind of makes you think like, oh, did it actually happen? All those people dying and everything. People are just like behaving like normal, right? It's got a very like fairy-like quality to it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, not everybody's normal because I mean, the one guy Temper got in a fight with got fired because he wouldn't stand his or not the anything. And then maybe one of my favorite things in this whole book was that random person that was like, I prayed to Hood that the demons would take my neighbor, not me, and it worked. And I was just like,
Hell yeah.
that is so terrible but awesome.
Yeah.
Legend. I will say another like it's not in my mind a strong criticism, but like a moderate criticism is, as much as I love the fishermen and I love those scenes, it kind of feels like that didn't need to be in the book. Like
Mm.
maybe it
I
raised
didn't
the
see that
stakes a
coming
little
from
bit,
you, Carl.
but like I know, but like because okay, so here's the deal. I had forgotten how all of that played out. I didn't remember what happened to
Mhm.
Stormriders. I knew they were stopped, but I did not remember exactly what happened. And so I thought, there's more to this story, right? And it turns out, no, there's not.
Huh.
And the Stormriders are defeated off screen, and which I imagine is you're the scene you're going to bring up, Mirka. And so it all kind of feels like, why? Like, why are we doing this? Like, if there was at least a payoff to the fishermen, I would have felt like, okay, there's something there. But there wasn't. He's just kind of there, and he has these awesome, just amazing scenes, truly wonderful scenes that have absolutely no place being in this novel.
Yeah, it was a shame. I agree. I think all those fight scenes prior could have been maybe a little shorter, and then the final battle between Tayschrenn and Stormriders could have been given a little bit more space. Because we just don't know how that played out. Like, he defeated them, yes. And Agela presumably helped. She's very much shaken and out of energy and sick afterwards, but we have no idea what happened there.
Yeah.
I'm
I don't know.
also unclear on whether it was Agela and Tayschrenn and co who defeated the Stormriders, because there was also what was it, Temper, when he shows up and asks Edgewalker for help, and Edgewalker says, "No, sorry, I'm dealing with this invasion of the giant iceberg thing." I assume that had to do with the Stormriders. So he's also seemingly contributing to not letting them take over the Shadow Throne. So I'm
Yeah.
not sure who defeated them.
We don't know.
Yeah, it is ambiguous, like what Edgewalker really had to do, because he said he's in the Shadow Realm. He's trying to stop this big glacier from coming to the heart of Shadow, but that would also mean he's trying to stop the Stormriders, who are very in the other world, trying to get to the Dead House. So yeah, I don't know. It doesn't really. I don't understand how that works.
We could also ask, how much does Temper's fight and defeating of the Jagat help with the Stormriders? Because I think the Jagat and the Stormriders were somehow connected, right? Like they were working together towards the common goal.
So she could get out.
Right.
Yeah.
Were they? I don't think they were working together so much as like the Jagat was taking advantage
She
of.
summoned them, I guess, or
That's what I
Did she
thought.
say that?
Seems
That's
implied,
what I
I think
understood.
so.
Thought so.
I think they're separate because they're not Jagat.
No, but they are ice
But they're
aspected
connected
somehow.
through
I think it is
Compass
hinted
Relax.
at these two powers being together on the assault of the shadow realm.
Yeah. I thought that was true too, but I didn't connect that she summoned them, but I might have missed something there.
I'm not sure now.
So that would make sense.
She
Then
didn't
that
know,
would
right?
sort of put the
That-
whole Stormriders thing together.
Well, the epilogue like tells you why they came.
Does it?
Like the people are killing them, or at least that's what they say, and so they're
no,
like,
no, they're yeah, but they're still coming for the dead house. I think.
Yeah.
Well, and then this will be Varsha's thing. Well,
Yeah.
Varsha, why don't you talk about the ending before I say it?
No, I mean, I think I more wanted to discuss like the philosophical aspect of it, because the island
okay.
people are all. Sorry, go ahead. So maybe we'll come to that later. Shannon, say your
So
thing.
my impression was they're not intentionally killing people. They kill people by their nature because they're just so cold. Like that's what we saw in the prologue or whatever. Like they didn't mean to kill that whole ship. They just happened to be close to them. So like my impression was that they were coming for the dead house. They were coming for that power, but they weren't necessarily meaning to kill people. But people get killed because they're so cold.
Wow.
And then they're surprised that they are being opposed by all these mages that kill them.
Yeah, like we're just trying to get to this house. Why are you killing us?
We're being completely harmless. We're just cats that want to eat your fish. But
I need
But I
to
thought
check
there
on that connection between the Jagged and the Stormriders.
I thought
I'm
she
not
did say
100% sure.
something like that,
So-
like when she was
so the-
discussing.
the wiki
I
says
think she
that
did.
he allied with them. I completely missed that, or I forgot about it. Yeah, I don't know.
Because
I mean,
because she gives up once they're defeated. Also, like that's kind of, or well, I guess she gives up technically when the conjunction's over, but she pretty much like she's like Edgewalker tells her like, oh, they've been defeated. Like that means something to her.
okay, yeah. So I have no idea what the hell's going on there. I have no clue.
But
I understand her motivation. Like she wants to get out.
yeah,
But then what the hell are the Stormriders doing?
I just
they're
assumed they were there to.
they're going for the throne.
or they're trying
But
to help
why?
her. I don't know.
Take over Shadow. I don't know.
Their
But I
beef
thought
isn't
they're
with Shadow
ice
though.
things.
It's
I
with
think
people.
it's just the
It's
power.
not about
thing.
beef. It's about power.
Yeah,
Hmm?
I mean, maybe this is the issue when they are so mysterious. You're like, literally, what are they doing?
But yeah, I mean, I think it's like the cat going after the fish. Like it's just, hey, I
Okay.
want that.
It's
I guess.
I wish they would have actually played more of a role then.
Hmm.
Like the Stormriders
And
are
I
awesome,
agree with that.
and I love every scene that they're in. But like, maybe we could have gotten more of them, and have like you don't have to reveal all their secrets, but give us like interactions with it. Like, give us the confrontation with Tayschrenn. I mean, if Kiska's stumbling around everywhere and seeing random important stuff, like, why can't she randomly see that? A gala could be there. Like, that
But
could
we
be a
even-
really great climax.
Yeah, we even get scenes where neither Kiska nor Temper are present, and we still see them happen, right? There is the meeting with
Yeah.
Gala and Obo, and I don't know, a couple other scenes. It's not all Kiska's or Temper's point of view. Like there is definitely room for some other things happening.
Oh, Carl, I may have your answer. So okay, so when I found it, when Edgewalker shows up, he says, "I bring signs of your failure, Jenna. The writers have been repulsed. No release will come from that avenue." Blah blah blah. So maybe she was summoning them, and also because of that connection of Amptos Valak, maybe there was something in it, not just escape, but like power. Like she was trying to supplant Shadow with ice or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like the
But I think she was. I think she
can-
was summoning
can
them. Like
escape
I think that's
dead
the
house.
because it's her failure.
But I don't know. I do agree that the writers. I would like to know more about it. They're like very cool, and those parts of the book, like how they were described, it was pretty cool. It has no purpose for the story of this book. And again, that's one of the things
Yeah.
that supports what I said before. It's like there's a lot of things which make it not like standalone in my mind,
Sure.
and it's kind of like feels like the middle, but feels a bit of a gap. It's kind of like like that RPG supplement that you buy that explains some more of the lore, and it kind of stands in the middle, but it's not like a self-contained adventure, and it leads to possibly other things, but it's not the main thing. That's kind of what it felt to me.
For what it's worth, I think within the context of all of the Malazan books, that basically is what it is. Like,
Okay.
I think that there is more to it, maybe as like just like a novel within itself as kind of standalone structure, but then you do have to take it in the context of everything else. And I think given that additional context, it does just kind of feel like a side adventure that gives some additional context to a
I
lot
think
of
if you
stuff.
want to make a standalone, you could, but you need to do some editing and remove some parts and add some more parts. And
I
Yeah.
agree. I do agree with that.
I
Okay,
think
I'll
it's
say
fair.
this. I don't think this book was like edited at all. Like there are so many typos. It's unreal. Apparently there are 2 chapter 5s, which is crazy.
Yeah.
Chapter
Yeah.
3 is the longest chapter in the world for no reason at all. It should be like 2 different chapters.
And chapter 6 is like 3 pages.
Yeah.
Like I mean, I'm entirely speculating here, but I suspect that Tor was like, "Oh, these Malazan books, The Fallen, are like really hot right now," and Erickson has his buddy who has written some stuff, so like, let's get him to write a book. And so he wrote a book, and they just like pumped it out and didn't like spend enough time like properly editing it, because I think there is like a potentially really great book here. And I still, like I said, I really like it, but like there are just like some things that to me seem like such obvious fixes.
Well, and then also, except until I saw Tor on the side of it, I really thought this was self-published. Like this particular copy, because it doesn't even match the other 5 books that Tor published of this series. Like the rest of them look completely different.
Yeah.
But no, it was published by Tor, so you're right. They just kind of were like, okay, yeah, that looks good.
It really feels like Tor just rushed it out. Like that's not even as much a criticism against Esslemont as like as a Tor. Like, do your fucking jobs. Like, who edited this book? An editor's job is important.
I think I read somewhere that one of the other ones from Esslemont was even worse, and then there was actually a public statement in which they apologized for the lack of editing and corrections, and then they republished like the next version with like all the grammar corrected and all the stuff corrected. But yeah, that's pretty insane.
That's actually horrendous. Like that's embarrassing. Tor, what are you doing?
Interesting.
Go ahead.
I wanted to quickly go back to Temper, just because I had a quick question that I didn't want to forget, if that's okay.
No, go ahead.
He became the guardian of the dead house, right? But like not the inside guardian, the outside guardian. As we learned, there are 2 different types of guardianship, apparently. Is he still dead after the events of this night, or do you think he keeps that position going forward? Because I was not sure about that. How you guys understood that?
That was actually something that I wanted to ask about too, because I figured if he kept his guardianship, that he'd not be allowed to leave. Or at least that was what I thought was implied with that whole discussion between him and Edgewalker and what's the Jagged's name, Jenna. And
I don't think
he was able to just leave.
And Pharaoh hung out in the bar across the street. So,
but he's also a guardian. Oh, interesting.
Yeah, he directly replaced Pharaoh and the other guy. So no, I feel like they're like, ooh, in time of need, you're a guardian. Like you just stay close, and if something happens, you're there.
Makes sense.
Really?
Okay.
I thought the whole point was that he fully rejected that. Like he did not do it, and like the surge of power he got to face off the Jagged, I assumed was from December. Dasimultor, who is a god now, and who I imagine his connection to empowered him. Like that's where I thought his
were
power
those
came
mentions of like patronage, right? Like he was like, where is this power coming from?
See, I thought that was the Dead House giving him power because he became the Guardian.
It's ambiguous
because that was my big problem with that whole scene was that like this Jagdhat's like, hey, Dasim's still alive. I can tell you where he is, and I just thought it was unrealistic. He was instantly like, no, because I'm like, what do you owe this house? Like, why did you even tell Pharaoh you would carry on for him? Like, you were literally tricked by some shadow cultists into walking into through these gates. Like, why do you feel like you need to protect this place? Like,
he never actually agreed,
up to the point that
right? Did he agree?
No, he did. He told Pharaoh. When Pharaoh was like,
he formally accepted.
He accepted.
So his power then probably was from the Dead House.
But I felt like, I mean, especially once he found out like this person can tell him where Dasim is. It's like I don't know.
That actually makes it.
But
I thought his power surge was a really cathartic moment because I thought it was one of those fantasy like. It's like making the metaphor real, you know, like his connection to Dasimultor, his past, his history, you know, his experience was paying off in that moment. Yeah. And that's like everything around that scene is like about that in my mind. Like that's like what he keeps coming back to. And if that's not the payoff, I don't know what the hell is going on.
Well, the payoff is what you said earlier. That he's like, I'm going to hold the line. That he's Mr. Hold the Line. That was the payoff. Like you were 100% right with that. I don't understand why we left. Yeah, like why he.
And he even says something like, I don't know why I'm accepting this, or like something is in me is responding to this call. I'm like, oh, come on. Like,
yeah,
it needs to be something more.
But he also had a thought about how the Jagged betray people. Like, they don't really keep their promises, apparently. Apparently, they have a saying about that. So I think he didn't really believe that she would tell him, even whether or not she was lying. I think there's two parts to it. She might be lying, and even if she's not, whether or not she'd follow through on her promise is unclear. But but to your point, I guess maybe he's already accepted the guardianship, so he's like, okay, now I'm going to fight you. But I don't know that that's sufficient motivation for that scene. But yeah, I think if he gives into the Jagged, there was a very real chance that she would just kill him. I think that's. So he was defending himself, perhaps.
Because she'd already promised something, and Edward Walker had told him that she was speaking like half truths. And then there was the Dasim, and then he actually looked at Edward Walker, and Edward Walker was like, "Well, I can't tell you if this one person's alive." So, that is probably it.
I'm actually you potentially just made me like the book less. Because that's one of my favorite moments in the whole book. I thought he was getting his power, and I liked that it was kind of ambiguous and that it wasn't stated explicitly. But I liked the idea that he was getting his power from Dasimultor. That is like, of course, like you have sworn your life to this guy. He's still alive. He's a god. You've basically informally made a pact with him. Of course, you can draw on him for power. Like that makes perfect sense within the context of the world, and that would be such a perfect moment, especially when you have the Dead House like trying to suck its little vines into you. Like what?
Or maybe it's not like mutually exclusive. Maybe it's kind of both. Yeah. Like we can still keep.
Yeah. If you need this, Carl,
that's the author.
We can work this in. And Hairlock is alive too. But
Hairlock is alive. Hairlock is alive. Who said otherwise?
So if you need this, we can make this. We can headcanon this.
I'm so mad.
But on the subject of Dasimultor, I was curious, Dan, how did you like those sections? Did you care about them at all? Were they interesting to you?
They were interesting. I like Dasimultor's character and like that story with the champion and all the things that happened. Like that was really interesting. I just didn't need it for Temper's story, really. Like it's way too detailed for the purpose that it serves in this story, I think. And it kind of like it went for too long, and it was like, well, okay, now we're doing this, and there's all the other stuff going on. that's why I was saying, like, I'd rather just read a book about Decimalter's things that he did during those campaigns. And I'm sure there is a book about the initial Malazan conquest.
It's coming out next year.
Okay, there you go.
Interesting.
But yeah, again, like one of the many things that it just done makes it not a complete self-sustained package and interest story in itself. Because again, even the author here is not as interested in the characters. So why should I? You know what I mean? Like in the main two characters, I guess.
I totally get what you're saying. My first time through this, the big thing, like looking back, I remembered was Decimalter and Temper's story. And that, yeah, like months down the road, that's what I remembered about this book.
Yeah. It was very cool, like with Surly and the assassins and all those things that happened. It was,
Because it was more like the original series, I think, like in the way it was written and in that the characters were familiar. I think maybe that familiarity is something that is immediately appealing, and I loved it. For me, like every time there was a long Kiska session, I was like, "Can we please go back to the retrospectives from Igatan and all that?"
Yeah.
I'm glad it was.
I think I felt similarly about that, but I think I agree with you, Dan, that maybe it didn't need to be here, and I think it's mildly shaky, the purpose it serves to build Temper's character too. I think it does serve to show what a badass he is, and I love seeing Temper through Kiska's eyes, because like it's probably the armor he's wearing, but also he seems like this really large dude, so it makes sense that he's the one who like holds fort, and he's the one, like, he's a last man standing and so on. So yeah, I think the backstory served definitely to give us that and build up to that conclusion. But I think I was interested in the backstory more for Das than for him. So I think I definitely agree with that. With, this doesn't really need to be here per se.
Did anyone else find it really confusing how, because Kiska didn't know like who most of the characters were, she kept referring to them as like old man, giant, soldier,
the giant,
and I'm like, who are you talking about? Like,
that got confusing.
Who is the giant? It can be the Jagged, it can be Temper, it can be so many.
There are so many old men.
Yeah.
There are like 12 old men. It's crazy.
Yes.
Well, this is when I was really using those Knight of Knives companion guide to like who are we talking about? Oh, okay, so it's that person. Got it.
I wonder if it could have been written from like the point of view, sort of a more omniscient narrator. Like it doesn't necessarily have to be completely tied to those characters, because we already know who those characters are. So we don't need to be tied to a specific character and his limited point of view, because we already have the other point of view, which tells us who they are. So maybe it didn't have to be that way. I wonder.
I agree completely. That's my biggest issue with this book. Too much, like, internal monologue.
How much? I just want to ask, how much do people notice like different points of views and like the narrator in like other books too?
Very.
Like, do you ever stop to think about it? Because I just thought about it. It's like I don't really think about it in many books, but it is a thing. It is a conscious choice for a lot of books, right?
I didn't used to. I do now.
Okay.
Same. And I think a large reason is Malazan, because like the Book of the Fallen specifically, because every section you have to stop and like, you're not immediately told whose perspective it is. So it's a bit of a guessing game, or sometimes what I would do is skip ahead to the part of the page where we are told who it is, then come back and then
this
start
is the fucking problem. This is my one of my biggest issues with Erikson is like sometimes he's just obtuse with his, like, one of the greatest writers I've ever read. I love his works. I stand by it, but like if I had to point to one consistent flaw, I can distinctly remember seeing, I want to say it's in book 8. We haven't gotten there yet, where it's just he and her for like pages. We don't get descriptions. And I'm like, literally, what the fuck are we doing? We know these characters. This isn't mysterious. Just give us their names. There's no reason to, like, it drives me nuts. Oh my God. That's one of my pet peeves. I have such a distinct memory. I can remember where I was reading this scene and being like, literally, this is like everything people hate about this series. What are we doing? There's no reason for this to be confusing.
Yeah. I thought it works quite well in some books which do like a first person perspective, because then you're like very rooted in the main point of view.
Mm-hmm.
So you kind of need it.
Well, this is not to say that I think that like close third person perspectives are a bad thing. I actually love them. And I think you can use them very well. And many authors do. I think Erikson does oftentimes. And there are parts of this book that I think do actually benefit from it. It's just when it, like, that's not even close third person. It's just being obtuse. Like, it's like, just tell us who they are.
But if a reader, if a reader already has that perspective,
exactly,
like, you shouldn't need to hide it. You can hide it from what a character says, right? But you don't need to hide it from the description, like the non-speaking part, right?
Right. It's only useful if like you're like an example I think of is like A Song of Ice and Fire does this several times, where like characters, like kind of supporting characters who are like not major players, will like appear in different POVs, chapters in different books, and they'll be described certain ways, and like you won't realize they're a character, because they're being seen through a different character's eyes, and so there's a big payoff when there's that reveal. Like there are like several times this happens, and I think like that's a good way of using it. But then you can also just get lost in the sauce and just completely make it just needlessly difficult to read.
It is useful to give a different perspective on certain characters, because if it's a character you already know and you say the name, you already have your preconceived conception. But if you want to show different aspects of it, then you can do it like you said.
That's one of my favorite authorial tricks. I love, personally, I love writing that. I love when authors do that, is taking like two different characters, see something completely different from the same person. And like, you still have to like juggle the line where they don't literally seem like a different character, but even the way they describe a character, what aspects of their appearance they focus on, it can make such a big difference and tell you so much about both the character whose head you're in and the character you're looking at.
True. I guess if we were just seeing this book from Kiska's perspective, then it wouldn't make sense to be like the old man or whatever, right? Because it's just from her perspective, and we don't know who these other characters are, right?
The problem is there are several old men, so you're like, what? How is she differentiating them?
I guess so.
Give us a little more detail. Is it the old man with the staff? Is it the old man who doesn't matter? Is it the old man who's the other POV character who has like a sword?
That's
which
the
old
giant,
man?
Right? I think from her point of view, that was the giant.
The giant was the Jagged, wasn't it?
Not initially. I think when they are in the Mox hold, she refers to Temper as the giant, and then maybe that switches later on when she sees the Jagged. I don't know. It was very confusing.
And then when she says giant again, I'm pretty sure she's thinking about Temper, because I believe she makes the call back to the giant she saw at Mox hold.
Okay.
Yeah, I think so.
We're just re-architecting the book for Carl.
Needlessly confused.
And part of the problem here is in Temper's POV, he thinks of the Jagged as the giant, which, I mean, maybe that's intentional. Like, I don't know. Maybe Esslemont is trying to draw those.
That's giving us a sense of perspective. Temper's so big, because thinks of him as a giant, and now Jagged is a giant to Temper. How big must she be?
True.
Also, I mean, since you mentioned this, Varsha, and again, I'm just wondering if things are believable or not. Temper defeating a Jagged. I kind of maybe paused about that a little bit, because without spoiling anything, in some other books in the series, it takes two really powerful entities to kill a Jagged. and now there's this human who defeats a Jagged in a one-on-one duel. I was a little bit like, But I guess maybe that's the power that he's been drawing from the Dead House that kind of helps with that. So, okay, maybe that's okay.
Yeah.
Well, and I was going to give it, I had the same problem, but then I thought about it. I was like, okay, maybe he's getting the power. And then also he doesn't so much, because, I mean, she jacks him up. I mean, really, she like knocks his helmet off, messes up his armor. I mean, it's not so much that he defeats her, like beats her in a fight, but he just stops her.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
he doesn't let her keep going anymore. So he's able to do that.
Yeah.
But as far as like, I don't think he could beat her. I think he could just stop her until she quits. But if she hadn't quit, she would have. I think she would have taken him out.
To the other fight where he basically stalled the what was his name, surgeon, long enough for Dasan to escape, and like this is again like he just stood against something long enough so that she was completely tired and unable to continue. So
that's what I like about Temper, is because I read that as he didn't win the fight, he just like lasted long enough that the fight ended. And I mean, he sort of won by the fact that she did not accomplish her goals, but he didn't like outmatch her per se. Like I love that Temper is like, he's just a stubborn bastard. And he just like, he's not like a prodigy. He's not the most talented warrior, but he just can fight hard enough and long enough and keep going, even when he thinks he doesn't have it in him anymore. That like, it's a trope, like this is a thing like you see in like anime all the time and like in other fantasy novels, like I don't know if it's realistic per se, but I love it when you just have this guy who just refuses to give up. And just like keeps going, and like he doesn't win the fight per se, but he like he just keeps up with the insanely.
He can take the beating and just keep taking the beating.
Yeah, it's also worth saying the Jagged like fought a bunch of other people before then too.
And Temper also escaped from a hound, right? That was that sort of built up to it, that he stood his own against a hound.
He successfully did not
managed, but
he successfully did not die.
Yeah, exactly.
But I mean, he's definitely like one of the top swordsmen of the whole empire. He's like, he's not like a normal guy. He's like
he's not
10 or whatever in the whole empire.
I get the idea he is like a quarter ascendant, like from all of his adventures with Esslemont. Like he's more than a normal person. Like he just seems to be able to do a lot. But I was Carl. You just said they were fighting amongst themselves, which I think that's a good segue. So I did want to talk about my actual favorite scene. I thought of the end of this was Kellenved and his actual approach to the Dead House, and I really liked that. I liked how like any other time he wouldn't have actually made it. Like he the only reason he was able to ascend is because all the Guardians are over here fighting each other. And then even then, Oleg gets him, throws him into like a mound or something, and Dancer has to save him. So he really didn't, almost didn't make it, despite everything. And
it's also the most
it's just
like Kellenved win that he wins kind of through trickery and luck.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Like
mostly luck, I think.
Like he's so mysterious, especially at the start of the Book of the Fallen, but like the more you get to know him, the more you realize that like he's a trickster god. Like that's his entire shtick, which is why I love him.
Yeah.
Like not only does like he's unpredictable, but like he wins essentially by outsmarting everyone and being a jackass. And I just think I love that in any character, but like especially one who's like a god, is like that's just fun. I like Loki. I like just like when all uber powerful people are like not out there blasting light rays, but are like manipulating everyone around them and people's senses and things like that. It's fun.
But also, isn't this the easiest?
Sorry.
Just that it's the easiest trick in the book to go around and enter from the back while something else is happening.
Yeah,
but
like,
no one else
I mean,
thought of it.
we thought,
No
like,
one else
his
thought of it.
genius and his genius plan is to have things happen in the front and go around the house and use the back door. I don't know. I found it kind of funny how simple that was. And no one thought of guarding the house from all sides, just from the front.
Love it.
Well, I mean, I think it's well, yeah. But
So
but
was
well,
that
oh,
the
I was
full
gonna say,
plan?
yeah.
No, I think there was more to. I mean, it's unclear what actually his full plan is, right? Like we don't know.
No,
We don't get it. It's not
I
like
don't
this is a
think he had
heist
anything to
movie
do with
where they
the.
lay it out.
Yeah, I don't think he had anything to do with the Stormriders, but
No,
like he definitely had the shadow cultist toss Temper in, and so he was creating a diversion, at least with Temper at the front.
for sure.
But one thing I did really want to say was one thing I enjoyed about this scene was also like I think this might be the only scene I can guarantee we saw the real Kellenved, because he's so trickery and all this illusion, but like as he's going for this house, like I think this is the real him. This isn't an illusion. This isn't any trick. This is like one time we actually get to see him.
Yep. How did y'all feel about Cotillian's appearance?
Well, sorry, before leaving this point,
ahead.
can someone summarize what the actual plan was? Because I'm not sure I followed 100% of it. Like, let's say I'm Kellenved before this night. What's my actual plan?
That's what I'm saying. We don't know.
I think
like we can speculate, but we don't know definitively.
Okay.
From what I got, he faked his death fighting Surly. Like that was he wanted himself dead so that he could ascend and people wouldn't know he ascended.
But did he actually die? He didn't die.
No, he didn't die. No, we didn't see it because our POV's in the room below the room that all the action's happening. But there's a big fight up there, and I can assume that like he set them up, like Ash and all those guys were cannon fodder. And then he goes out. He's fighting Surly. Oda does. They go out the balcony or out the window or something, and then I don't know. Like he fakes his death, and I don't even know if Surly actually believes he's dead or if she's just saying he's dead. Because for sure Tayschrenn knows he's not dead, but he's like, no, we agreed he's dead. Like,
why did he have to
Kiska
fake his death?
Yeah, I'm not sure why. It is kind of.
I don't have an answer for that. I just know he fakes his death.
I see. Yeah. Okay.
Like,
And
why
he
would they
has
have
to
to
do it
go
this
into
night?
that room and kill a bunch of claws and kind of fight, quote unquote, Surly if they didn't want to, like, kill her at all, or did they want to kill her?
So I don't know why they would want to do this, but is it a way to sort of renounce the Empire and say like they're done with it?
I think that's a big part of it. My reading of it is also like a lot of the magic in Malazan is like intentionally kind of symbolic. And I think it's the idea of that like the emperor has to die to become a god. You think of like the Roman Empire. I mean, you think of like any mortal who has been deified, like they had to die first. And so I think it is him essentially creating a death and resurrection myth or death and ascension myth, as it were. For himself. And, obviously people don't know that he literally became a god, but I think that's like part of the magic of his ascension is he is emboldening his own legend. Because we do know that the perception of individuals influences how powerful they are. Right? Like that's a big part of ascension is that like people think you're like hot shit. And so you actually become more powerful.
Yeah. But Kellenved had already left the Empire for a while, I don't know, people don't really know that he's dead in this night, so it's not really something that's
yet. But in the future they're gonna talk about it as if this was the night he died.
Yeah, in the future, right? But not as he's ascending, right? Ascension happens before.
That's fair.
So, yeah, my impression was that he was just creating a break between Kellenved and Shadow Throne. So because when we go into Gardens of the Moon, people generally don't know this is the same person.
Yeah.
So like he's leaving behind Kellenved, now he's just a god.
I wonder if he just doesn't want to have an association with the Malazan Empire. I think we've read at some point something like, oh, it would be problematic if the Emperor of the Malazan Empire was also an ascendant or like a god, right? I remember reading it at some point.
Yes, they definitely say that in either Memories of Ice or House of Chains, because the implication is that all the gods would come down on
Okay.
the Malazan
Malazan
Empire.
Empire. Yeah.
So maybe that's why. Maybe he
Oh,
just,
that's right. Yeah.
it's like a pretend so that the Malazan Empire wouldn't be destroyed, and his creation, I guess, wouldn't be destroyed.
That's a great point.
My
No,
biggest issue with
yeah.
that it very much, like in the Gardens of the Moon or later books, I'm not sure, it feels like they are resentful against Lasine for taking the
Yeah.
throne.
Yeah, that was
Good
earlier.
point.
Yeah, we've seen
And
that.
that's like, I mean, if you planned this whole time and it was yours,
Well-
Gabe, why would you hold that against her that, you know, she
Yeah.
seemingly killed you? I don't know.
Well,
that's
I don't
something
remember
can't
those
figure
scenes
out.
exactly, but were they resentful against her for taking the throne, or just the fact how she's mismanaged the throne? Because I feel
think
like
it
that's
was-
the bigger issue.
I think it was the assassination.
Was the assassination?
I mean, that's definitely
Well,
my
then this
read
book
of it.
doesn't make sense for that.
Well, no, I think, but like, don't think of it like politically. Think of it like personally. Like, presumably, they were friends or they had a relationship, so it is like a personal betrayal. Even if they were like, yeah, like sure, we were going to fake our deaths. You know, it still is like, oh, but you actually like came for us. Like you actually
took credit
like we didn't
for-
tell you to do this. Like we weren't like, yeah, go ahead. Like, but, you know, like we're going to collaborate here and you're going to get to take over. Like she personally was like, yeah, actually, I'm going to murder these two.
Yeah.
And so, you know,
Okay.
I think I could imagine that would piss someone off.
even though it played perfectly into their plans.
Yes,
and,
right.
and they
Well,
potentially
I
anticipated
don't
that
know.
happening. It still pissed them off. Okay, yeah, I
think
guess
so.
Yeah.
maybe.
I mean, Kellenved is not like these are petty individuals. I don't get the sense that like
I think Kellenved is very petty. I agree with that.
particularly Kellenved. I don't get the sense is like an emotionally mature, compassionate, forgiving person.
Yeah.
You know, and that was also the low point of both of like for them as people. I feel like, at least in the book The Fallen, where like they're explicitly portrayed as bad guys. I mean, they commit a massacre for no reason, a war crime, right? I mean,
Well,
they're murdering.
Well, Cotillian's on a character arc. He's a better person already.
Right.
5 books in than he
Maybe.
was from the guy that wiped out a whole village for
No,
really no
that's what I'm
reason.
saying. Is that that was their kind of low
Yeah.
point? Was like that was them at
Because now
peak
he's being like,
psycho
Mhm.
god, you know, and that now they're changing. I mean, Cotillion much more explicitly and obviously than Kellenved, but you know, we'll have to see how the rest of the book The Fallen plays
I
out.
think to me a comparison is kind of like, I don't know if I can make this comparison, but it's like if I think about Jesus and Judas is necessary to betray Jesus, but I think most Christians would not be like, well, you had to do it. You will give you a pass. You know what I mean? It's like he was
no,
necessary.
you're
and-
right. That's yeah.
but still. Or even like Gollum in Lord of the Rings. He was necessary to destroy the ring. That doesn't make his motivations good, and it doesn't make him. You know what I mean?
Mm.
You're still supposed to pity Gollum, though.
Yeah,
I think
pity, but
Gandalf
it's
would
not.
be very disappointed with you, Dan.
For what it's worth, I think Erickson, and I don't know about Esslemont, but definitely Erickson wants us to pity Lasine. And I refuse to. She's a power-hungry asshole.
I hate her.
I do not like that woman.
I did like though how they matched in her description in the you know the Malazan Book of the Fallen in this book, and that was not the only thing where they kind of agree on things. I know there is a lot of criticism, and I have that criticism as well, where they kind of write characters differently. But at least there are like some things where it's obvious that they came up with these characters together. Like the clothing she wore is described the exactly same way as Erickson describes it. And I don't think it's because they paid attention to that. I think it's just that how they both remember that character from their games. And that's kind of cool.
Yeah.
That is cool.
I mean, I guess Tayschrenn's not the nickname, but the fake name that Tayschrenn has is, similar. And I think when Artantos was mentioned in Memories of Ice, Silver Fox said something like, "Oh, he hadn't used that name in a long time," and that's because she had Night Chill in her, who must have, kind of known Tayschrenn from early Empire, and like these little things. I don't think these two authors like plan for it. I think it's just an evidence of their games and them creating the world together, which I really like.
That's a great point.
There was another one, and this one I just read about, but apparently Ash was mentioned in the Battle of Raraku when the ghosts of Bridgeburners sweep in and they talk. There was a mention of a soldier that has acid burns on his body, and that is specifically mentioned in this book where last scene is like Ash used acid and she's like injured or whatever, which is
cool.
also super cool.
Yeah, I did notice, or I looked up. Hatter was actually in Memories of Ice, with Arlen Kun or whatever his name was, Tayschrenn. So yeah, Hatter. Yeah, I don't think he had a big role or anything. He just was there, like with Arlen.
Is that right?
There you go.
That's cool.
He might just be mentioned. Honestly, I doubt he even has a speaking role, but yeah, he's there.
Nice.
Interesting.
But no Kiska. Who knows what happened to her?
Who knows?
I mean, she must come back. I mean, the way she's set up, I feel because she joined Tayschrenn, I think she's gonna show up with Tayschrenn at some other point in the future.
We will have to wait and see, Dan.
Mm-hmm.
I'm literally looking this up. I'm not going to say, but I just have to know.
I already looked it up, but I know whether we see Kiska and Temper again. But I wanted to ask, what did you think of what Edgewalker says when Shadowthrone and Cotillion show up, and they're all cocky, and he's like, "Why do you think?" I mean, he's speaking to himself, but he's like, "Why do you think the throne was there to even be taken?" Right? So, do you think that these two will turn out to be different? One, I would really like to know what the heck is going on with that throne and why it keeps getting empty. But now that these two have it, I think the Malazan Book of the Fallen isn't over a long duration of time. I don't know how much the novels of the Malazan Empire cover, but let's say, even if it's, say, a couple of centuries out on the timeline of gods, do you think that these two will get to keep the throne? We'll find out that there's something different about them? Or do you think we'll see their eventual downfall?
I think if they were to write a book set thousands of years in the future, I think they would go. I think that's the moral of the story. People come, people go.
I agree.
People grasp for godhood, and I think they lose it.
I think Kellenved's character is very well suited to have a downfall. I feel.
I don't know if we'll ever see it, but I think that there isn't like a pretty high chance that they would be dethroned. I could see Cotillion becoming enslaved to Shadow, sort of like Edgewalker is, and Kellenved getting eaten by an Azath house. Feels like that would be a very natural ending for him.
Oh.
But if he ever gets caught in an Azath house, will he be like, I don't know, Silkus Ruin and the folk ruler say that was assaulting him, like that group where the house itself has to like fight against their power?
I think Shadow Thrones.
Go ahead.
I said I think Shadow Thrones is gonna just get turned into like a pile of rocks, like the other guy we met at the beginning of the book, because he's Shadow Throne, so he's just gonna end up as an inanimate object.
That would actually be so awesome if he became the actual Shadow Throne somehow. That would be just like some like Greek myth, the hubris, like some other god turns him into a throne. That would be so funny. I could see him absolutely, like, even after getting like dethroned or sucked into the Azath house, an Azath house, that he would still like interfere with things and maybe get out someday, and he would still cause problems in the same way that like Tayschrenn was imprisoned for hundreds of thousands of years. But look at him now. He's back.
Look at him now.
How far he's come.
Right.
Quick
Anything
question
else?
about
Yeah.
so they have the rule over the shadow now, right? And Edgewalker tells Kellenved, you don't command me because I'm just, a servant of shadow, just like the hounds. But Kellenved commands the hounds. So why not Edgewalker? Do you have any theories on that?
I don't know. I feel like the hounds can choose to not listen to him. That's the theory I have in my head. I think they're deciding to listen to him now, and they can go do their own thing. And I think we even may have seen them do that a couple of times when they just went off and did their own thing, not necessarily what Shadowthrone told them to.
Mm-hmm. Do you think maybe it's because the hounds like to have a master, unlike Edgewalker, and because they are hounds?
Yeah, probably. Yeah, that's the best theory I got.
But didn't they have to? I thought I remembered when they went into Dragnipur and then they escaped. I thought there was something there about severing a link to Shadow that let them be more free or something. I thought, but maybe I'm remembering wrong.
Well, I think the difference between them is that I think that the hounds are like a creation of Shadow, aren't they? Like they're reflections of the Hounds of Darkness.
We do not know.
True, we don't really know. But Edgewalker, we know from what he said, at least we don't know for sure. But we know that according to him, he's not from this realm. He was once god of this realm and then lost it. So he came from outside of it.
Yeah, good point.
And then that whatever his name was, the rock guy at the beginning, they couldn't really order him around either. He was trapped in some rocks, and you could just kind of reason with him.
Here is what I will say. I mean, I have many thoughts, but I think the last Carcanis book, Walk in Shadow, will tell us the origin of the hounds and Edgewalker.
I hope so.
I really hope so.
And Quick Ben, please.
Please.
I mean, I think, not to shatter hopes, but I think someone asked him in a Reddit AMA if he'll ever find out Quick Ben's origins. And he's like, no.
Oh, no.
I don't know if it was a can you tell us now question or will you ever tell us question, but the answer was no.
I think you can pretty strongly theorize about it, though, by Fall of Light. Like, there's some stuff in those two books that I think tells you a lot.
Yeah, the name is kind of used a little bit, and okay, yeah, let's.
I can't comment, but I think it's all very intentional. We do know, technically, we know his origins within the context of the Book of the Fallen, that there were the 12 souls, wizards, whatever, in Raraku that he like ate, basically.
Right, but he still couldn't have been a simple
there's more.
Mortal to do all that, to take all those souls. I don't know.
No, there's definitely more. There's definitely more. I agree. And I think the Carcanis books hint pretty heavily at what that is.
Okay. But is Quick Ben the 12? So the thing that's interesting about Quick Ben is that he knows things that nobody else does, right? At least that's why we need to know who the heck he is. And so we don't know if that knowledge comes from one of the 12 people he ate or the original person.
We have no idea.
I thought he was, but yeah, we don't know.
Cool. Anything else?
I had quotes, but I can't find my book, which makes me really sad because there were some really good passages in I thought the climax of the book.
Yeah, mine was.
Did you talk about everything you want to talk about, Varsha, with the philosophical
Oh yeah,
I-
you
I
didn't
think
say your thing.
touched upon it a little bit. Okay, so I'm not entirely sure where this falls in the book itself. Like as a concept, I think I love the fact that we've addressed that what feels like really terrifying entities that are out to get you are feeling similarly about you that that you are the monster for them. So I mean, every time that comes up, I eat it up in any story, like who's the monster. So I think I love that aspect of it, but and I guess that's sort of like the philosophical aspect that I wanted to discuss. But as I was thinking about it more while we were talking, I'm not entirely sure I understand its place in this book. So I wish I would have liked for that to be explored more, if that makes sense. And I think it was to a great extent with all the human perspectives we got, to just have that like completely turned around in the end. But for that to be pretty much the last scene of the book feels, I
Like
don't
a
want to say
setup.
gimmicky, but yeah. Sorry,
Like-
what was?
Just setting us up for something else, like
Yeah,
as
yeah.
if this book
If
was going to have a continuation. Yeah.
right, yeah.
Yeah.
I hope it's a setup for something else, because if that's the end of that, then I'm like, I'd like to sort of wrap my head around
Well-
what the point of it is. It's
I think the point, if taken by itself, is that they're, earlier in the book we were told they're alien. They came from somewhere else, maybe through Almtos Phalag. But like, when the grandpa cuts the guy's throat and the red blood and everything, I think the point is they're not so different from us. Like they're not meaning to kill us. They're doing their own thing, but the fact is that they're people too.
right.
Like I think
Well, but-
that's what he was trying to get across with that.
I was just gonna say it's about perspective. I mean, you think of shadow again. The metaphor of shadows. It's all about perspective. What's real and what's not.
But it also did read like setup.
I mean, that's what it is. Like that's definitely what it is.
Yeah.
And I'm sure Shannon could answer this more definitively, but I
Not
just
going to.
know that one of the books deals with the storm wall. I don't know anything more than that. I just know from like Amazon or something, like reading like blurbs. So we definitely return to the Stormriders.
Yeah. I think that's the point. Like I understand the whole like exploration of like they're not so alien, etc. But middle of the book, that would have worked for me. End of the book as the last scene, I want to know what it's doing there.
Yeah.
So
I think it's if you have seen Marvel movie, I mean, I'm sure just from pop culture,
It's
I
a
think it's like
stinger.
a post
It's a
credits
stinger at the end.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
it's there to be like, read the next books,
I hope so. I mean, I don't mind it if that's the purpose it's serving. That's great. I definitely want to read a Stormrider / Stormwall book. But
Does your version of Night of Knives have a teaser for Storm Wilder at the end? Or is it just my version of the book? Like there is a chapter that is just like, here's a teaser from Esslemont's next book.
Oh.
And there is a section with
yeah.
Kyle and all that.
Oh, Kyle.
Oh, Kyle. You guys, Barsha, Dan, you just don't know. That's Return of the Crimson Guard, though. We'll meet Kyle later.
We'll meet Kyle later. Okay. Sounds good to me. Okay. So quotes. Anybody have a book handy and have quotes? Mine was just going to be the one about why are you killing us, but we talked about it already.
That is a haunting line.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was good. I don't think I had any quotes. That was
Also how it was introduced, or like it was not directly observed, that scene, but I really liked how the fisherman came back and the little girl was like, oh, but something changed in his eyes. The spirit got him or something. I really like that.
So interestingly, you know what I thought happened there? But of course, when they finally went back and it turned out to be a Stormrider, it changed. I thought maybe the fisherman, he died, but it's sort of like a role that can be passed on. So I thought this fisherman, like the grandpa, when he went to take a look at that corpse, the role transferred to him. So now, like, whenever the Stormriders come, he has to be the one to take the boat out. But I don't think that's true, right? It's just
No,
the
I
I
literally-
mean,
Stormriders.
he was just
Yeah.
he was just shocked by what he was
Mm.
told.
Had the exact same thought. I was like, yes, this is the payoff. And then I was like, no, it's a tease.
I actually, I mean, I liked that last bit with the Stormrider, but I didn't like the structure of that,
Mm.
where it's like the kids, and then they get, well, and then we technically the last scene, and then we go back in time to what he went and did on the beach, and I was actually kind of confused the first time I read it. I had to reread it, like kind of like, wait, what just happened? And then I was like, oh, okay, so that's why he was acting like that to his grandchildren. So I don't know. I didn't like the structure of that very much, though. I see why he did it, because he did it so he could end on that
Right.
red blood.
Nice. Cool. So, all done then. We'll be back next week with Bone Hunters, the prologue, and the first 2 chapters. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you soon. Bye.